We go live to Oxnard, California. You can find him on Twitter covering the Dallas Cowboys for The Athletic at Jon Machota. He is the sun-baked Jon Machota. Jon, what's going on?
Just living the dream.
Well, Machota, we should need to start first. As you know, KG mentioned, injuries are taking over the NFL. Everybody good? Is everybody good?
Yeah, you good?
I'm good. I would say probably not as good for Donovan Wilson and Israel Mukuamu, but nothing on that Jalen Ramsey level. But I will say this. There will not be any blaming of the fields this year because in my time covering the Cowboys, this is the best shape these fields have ever been in. So that's a good thing for the Cowboys. But, yeah, nothing major to report.
Have you been doing any tackling drills? We've seen that some of the media members, maybe on the beach at times, have been doing tackling drills. Have you been getting involved in any of this?
You know, I saw some video of that, and I'm sorry I missed out on that. I didn't realize that they were turning it up to that level on a Wednesday night, but here we are.
I like Machota keeping it low key. Like, man, I don't know. Look, I don't be turning it up like that, man. I got work to do.
Jon has to rest his fingers so that he can go back out there and get these perfect videos all the time.
Okay, so question when it comes to that. Okay, we know now Hellman was in studio with us a couple weeks ago, and he ceded the throne to you when it came to Cowboys training camp video. Do you humbly accept that throne, or did you feel like you always had that based on the level of engagement of your Cowboys training camp videos?
No, I've always had that.
Oh, okay.
Talk that talk.
Talk your talk.
Johnny Matches.
Okay, Matches in the building. Okay, all right. Okay, so tell me, why are we not to make most of what's, social media's reaction has been to Dak's 2 interceptions so far?
I mean, it is training camp, and they are working on things. And let's just put it this way. If he was out there and they were, let's say in these practices, it was a game and they were trying to win the game, I don't know if those certain throws would have been made to those certain receivers. I mean, especially when you have a healthy CeeDee Lamb, Michael Gallup, Brandon Cooks. So, yeah, they're working some things out. And I would say the one yesterday to Simi Fehoko, I mean, that's on Simi Fehoko. You got to catch that. I mean, 7-on-7, you're not going to get tackled. You got to make that, coming across the middle. And he tipped it up in the air like we saw happen a little too often last year for the Cowboys. So that wasn't great. And then today on the deep ball, I mean, I thought it was a great play by Nahshon Wright. Maybe Dak underthrew it a little bit, but yeah, I don't know. I don't make a ton of that. I've never been one of these people that looked at his 15 interceptions last year and thought, yeah, there's something wrong with his game. He's not seeing the field right. He's second guessing everything. Like, yes, believe me, a lot of those interceptions were on him, but there were quite a few catchable balls that would have negated him having 15. Maybe he would have had 10, and that's still a lot for him. But yeah, it's obvious. I get the social media side of it. I understand it's the first 2 practices, 2 interceptions, and people want stuff to talk about. But I think it's a little early.
We're talking to Jon Machota of The Athletic right here on 105.3 The Fan. He is live from Cowboys training camp in Oxnard. And out there, I have been really interested, and me and KG have had conversations recently about the comment that Mike McCarthy made about running the damn ball and how that has kind of shaped the way that people view this this offense maybe being more offensively, run heavy. But thinking on the way that this, team is structured, the roster, the fact that you don't have a lot of running backs that people I feel really great about outside of the building. Have you gotten any idea of if that running the ball mantra is going to be really something that we see from the Cowboys, or if that's kind of just us on the outside making too big a deal out of something that was stated?
Yeah, I mean, when that statement was made back in February at the Combine, it blew up, and I thought it was a little overblown. But that's because if you just read the quote for what it is, it does sound like, oh, they're about to turn this thing back to 2014, where it was just this, you just knew that they were about to run the ball more in 2014, not only because they had a good offensive line and DeMarco Murray, but also because they wanted it so that Tony Romo wasn't having to try and win every game with his arm. And it led to some great success in 2014. And so it's not going to be like that with this team. I cannot see that happening. First, before you even get to anything involving the ball or running backs, let me know where this offensive line's at. That's the issue with me. If you want to run the ball because your offensive line's dominant, run the ball. I mean, hey, no one's going to argue with that if you're having success. But it just, ever since Mike McCarthy has been the head coach of this team, there just has not been that offensive line continuity because of so many injuries. And then as we get out here, Zack Martin's not out here right now, and so Josh Ball's filling in for him. And if they can get it out there where they have Zack Martin back at right guard and Tyler Smith at left guard, and Tyron Smith is healthy playing left tackle, and Terrence Steele is healthy playing right tackle, then this offensive line could be outstanding, and maybe they do run the ball a little bit more than the plan is right now. But I have some doubts about that. I think that's a lot to ask for. I mean, heck, just Tyron Smith alone staying healthy for the full season is a lot to ask for right now. So because of that, I just don't – you're not just going to keep running the ball if it's not working. And so because of that, I don't see a big – major significant change there. When he said that, for me personally, I felt like he was referring to the Jacksonville game and the Green Bay game last year where they had leads, maybe run the ball more in those games, and you get out of there with 2 more wins. I felt like it went more in that direction, but hey, you guys know how it is. I mean, once this stuff gets out there, people take it, and it just goes and spirals out of control, and you can't really control it after that.
Jon Machota, The Athletic, joining us here on the Get Right on 105.3 The Fan. Quote, "You all set the tone. I'll be there soon." That is what Tyler Smith said today as Zack Martin texted the offensive line group. How soon do you think we are to a Zack Martin return, possibly, in your mind?
Yeah, it's knowing how Zack Martin's been with this team and how close he is with a lot of players on this team and the type of player he is, I just do not see Zack Martin missing all of training camp, and I certainly don't see him missing games. And so maybe he's back in another week. But I don't see this as a holdout that's going to, it's kind of like you go back to the Donovan Wilson injury. When you hear that, it's like, hey, it's a calf strain. It's going to keep him out for a while, but he should be ready for week 1. I mean, that's what this is ultimately all about, is getting to week 1. And I do ultimately think Zack Martin will be out there. I don't know what that will mean in terms of adjustments to his contract or years yet added on to his contract, but there's just too much riding on this season for so many people involved that I can't see them messing around with the potential not having Zack Martin out there. So maybe he's not back in the next week, but I do think he'll eventually make it out here to California. And when he does, then I think there'll be a lot of Cowboys fans that are sleeping a little easier at night.
This is probably a text I should have just sent you earlier, Johnny, but I'm going to do it on the air because why not? Were you as shocked as I was that the Trayvon Diggs deal got done as soon as it did? I mean, ahead of CeeDee Lamb or anybody else that we could mention?
I personally didn't think he would be the first one out of that group. But when I saw, what the contract was and the structure of it and all that, I do feel like it's a great deal for Trayvon Diggs, but I also feel like it's a pretty good deal for the Cowboys in that they didn't have to make him the highest paid corner, where when you're in the class that he's in, I know some will argue, well, yeah, he gives up some yards and gambles on plays and things like that. But I'm a big believer in when you take the ball away and you get your hands on the ball at the level that Trayvon Diggs does on the back end in the NFL today, there's just so much value in that. And so I don't think that it was that tough of a decision to make for either side. I think that contract looks good for both. And so maybe this is a little bit of momentum to get one done with CeeDee Lamb in the next few days or maybe Terrence Steele or something like that. But it's good that they got at least one of them out of the way, because every day that goes by that they don't get any of them, that's just more questions they have to answer about that. And so that's definitely a strong start. But yeah, there's a few more that have to happen, I would think, in the next few weeks.
I love that you said that there's more questions that you have to answer, because ostensibly you'd be asking the questions, which almost makes that a threat. It's like, I'm going to ask you until you get this done.
No, that's true. That's true.
What is Jon Machota looking forward to as the Cowboys get ready for this weekend's practices as they continue their preparations for this season?
I'll tell you what, it's probably the same thing I've been looking forward to for the last few months, and that's I want to see some practices with full pads on. What we're seeing yesterday and today is just a continuation of, what we saw at OTAs and minicamp, and it's fine, and it's cool to see, the guys out there, and you can see the quickness and, straight line speed that Brandon Cooks adds, and that's great. But you really want to see some of these guys getting after each other. And I say that because not just because the training camp starting, but this is for me the best offense versus defense the Cowboys have had in probably over a decade. There's just great matchups all over the place that are going to be fun to watch when the pads are on. It just right now, it's a little bit more difficult to judge some of that stuff, and you don't want to overrate like, oh, this guy had this big day or whatever. It's like, well, okay, let's see when the pads come on, because that's how everything's going to ultimately be judged. And I specifically want to see it for a lot of the starters because of the fact that a lot of these guys aren't going to play a ton in the preseason, so this will be some. And then the other thing is that they're not practicing against another team in training camp, and so I'm looking forward to seeing some first team with the full pads on.
I mean, that's a great point. I was going to say, like, we really can't try and take too much from it, but is there anything that you've deemed notable in the first few days of camp, or is it just kind of all been a continuation, like you said?
For me, and I hate to overrate this because it's such a common thing to do, especially early in training camp, and that's when it comes to the wide receivers. It's easy, especially with the Cowboys. I feel like there's always somebody that kind of catches your eye and things like that during training camp at that position. But Jalen Tolbert has looked really solid. He's looked like he's very confident in his abilities, where he needs to be, and that's a big thing because of just the fact of what they're going to need from him this year, just because, with Noah Brown gone and, some other moves and things like that. They really need him to step up and be their number 4 wide receiver. And so through first 2 practices, he's looking like he's on track, and he certainly said all the right things when we got a chance to talk to him during OTAs at minicamp. And, he's put in the work with Dak, and he's certainly a guy I'll have my eye on. But rookie Jalen Moreno Cropper has been one of these undrafted guys that you're just like, he just seems to make plays here and there. And that wide receiver spot after those first 3, if they keep 5, so I would say Tolbert's pretty much locked in at being one of the 4. That leaves Simi Fehoko, maybe another one of these undrafted guys that could potentially make the team, depending on how they work Kavonte Turpin in. So I would say that they got some bodies here at wide receiver that would make me think that somebody's going to step up and take over that number 4 and number 5 spot, because it's just so valuable in the NFL today. With the way they pass the ball, your number 4 receiver, there's a chance he's getting number 3 reps, 3-4 weeks into the season because of maybe a small injury or a major injury. So, yeah.
He is the Cowboys training camp video king, the life of the party at Nobu. You can find him on Twitter at Jon Machota, covering the Cowboys for The Athletic. Jon, I appreciate you taking a few minutes out of your California day to hang out with us, man. Thank you.
No problem, gentlemen. Anytime.